You'll see it's not in the new one. Lease number 4 is Wayne Skinner's lease, and then lease number 5 is the Blackhawk. The ones that expired in January, the town offered free parking for everyone there. But now that we have Cheney Park and things are being moved around, and we have the beach there and the Parks and Rec mans a booth there, things will be changing in that regard, and I'll go over that. But the new lease configuration being proposed is the one dated 12/28/2015. And you'll see that at the end of the new lease, there's a piece of the dock being reserved for town use. I think that's for the police boats and the jet skis, so that they have a place to dock. So some of the changes being proposed for you is now there will be 4 leases, not 5. Leases 2 and 3 would merge. It has been proposed by Mr. Nickerson that there would be free parking to the west of the roundabout, which on your map dated 2015 would be to the left. So the road
in other words, before the booth, along the roadway as you go down toward Cheney Park.
And I did speak with Mr. Putnam yesterday and found out that there's also new rates for season passes for the parking this summer. And they are for a season beach pass for out-of-towners.
No, there's a change for non-residents, daily parking on weekends only. It just goes up from $25 to $30. Just on weekends for out-of-town or non-residents for the day pass.
Okay, so that was the only change. And then residents pay $10 for all 7 days of the week if they don't have a sticker.
I thought they're usually free to walk in.
No, free to walk.
Free to walk in, but if they
Parking is
want to
$10.
park, it's $10.
Right.
The proposal is that the Blackhawk and its patrons would have to park out on the where the free parking is, or pay to park with whatever the rate, whether they're town residents or out-of-town residents, with whatever the daily parking fee is. Mr. Putnam told us that the booth doesn't become manned till between 8 and 8:30. So if Blackhawk customers come before 8 a.m., they'd usually get to park for free because no one's manning the booth. There's a 1 o'clock or a 2 o'clock boat, and those people would have to pay whatever the parking fee is if they can't get the free parking leading up to the manned booth. The proposal is also that these new leases would be for 3-year terms. There would be a 5% increase over the current year. There would be no sleeping or residing on the boats, and that whoever leases them would have to be actively engaged in commercial fishing. The leases now say that if they don't operate commercial vessels anymore or a charter boat, then their lease can be terminated. I think we're going to put some stronger language in there, was the thought. I don't know if the selectmen want to allow people to use charter boats, or if you only want commercial fishermen there, but that would be a decision to be made. And that's really my update.
Tracy,
I don't know if anyone has any questions about the current leases or any proposed changes.
Is a couple quick ones. Is that one individual the only one that's in arrears?
Yes.
And what is the current? I'm sure Blackhawk probably pays more because they have a bigger.
Yes.
Okay.
Traditionally, and because I looked back in the history tonight, I could see that the rental payments were based on the but linear footage of the boat.
Okay.
Not the dock or the boat?
Not the dock, but the boat.
That's typically if you, when you go up to a marina, it's
Right,
based on
about the
length of the boat.
How does that work with combining lease 2 and 3? Are they gonna be adding another boat there?
No.
No, they're going to keep a boat there, and those docks are the same exact size, so I do think that that's a decision that has to be made. Would 2 and 3 pay the same rental fee, or would
Right.
it be based on their boat size as we've traditionally, or the town has traditionally done it?
What is the rationale for needing the 2 spaces if they're only going to have 1 boat?
I think it's a very small dock for 2 spaces to come in and out, is my understanding.
It is.
Originally, I think they were brothers, so there was a family thing there, and they kind of put up with each other and all that. Oh, it's just not proper. It was always designed for 4 boats. We're going to go back to that.
Okay, currently we have reserved spaces for the
Give me the
Black Hawk.
microphone. We want people to hear you.
Currently, we have reserved spaces for the Black Hawk customers. And how does that number of spaces compare with the spaces that are on the drive-in side?
I think there are more I know there are more spaces on the drive-in side. What the problem is, they'd be competing with people coming to walk on the boardwalk or coming to the beach.
Mm-hmm.
So there would be no guaranteed spots for them anymore.
The signs that are up now are not a part of the lease. They were just put up. There's signs as you near the Black Hawk that says reserved for Black Hawk only. That's not proper.
I believe that was an agreement with them that they would
If it was
have-
verbal in nature, it's not in the contract. And going forward, we're going to be pretty clear in the contract. That's not there. Now, if it's if we'd like to consider that, I can put that in to reserve spaces for them.
Well,
It's-
in the early discussions, I wasn't aware that it wasn't in the lease.
Yeah, it's not.
But
in the
they were promised spaces that would be reserved for them, for their clients,
Right.
their customers.
And keep in mind, the last 4 or 5 seasons, we haven't had a boardwalk, and we've had a beach with limited exposure and access. So it hasn't been an issue, but the issue of parking down there has become, the forefront. Last summer, and I'm sure going into this summer, with now the boardwalk fully opened.
Mrs. Hardy, the last lease for the Black Hawk states that lessee shall be entitled to park 3 vehicles in the area designated on Schedule A, which is the map that you have, the old map. Overflow parking for fishing dock leases Black Hawk employees, and shall be entitled to park other vehicles in spaces available in the Cheney parking lot on a first-come, first-served basis.
Is that gonna be? Is that in the new contract? That's stricken from the new lease.
That will change. The new contract will say that they can park on the road coming in west of the roundabout, or they can pay to park, as all other visitors are expected to pay to park in accordance with the Parks and Rec, whatever
Okay.
rates they set.
Have we had any issues or complaints about any of the tenants besides not?
There's
Has it
been
been the risk?
only, it's spotty. It's just been an afternoon here or there, and it's been in those 90-degree days. And don't forget when they go out at 5, they come back at say noon. So as people are getting off the boat, other people are coming on the boat, so those people can take the spaces. So it's worked out. Somehow it works out. But I just want to not say they're guaranteed the spaces for sure. And I'd rather have boardwalk walkers who are parking for free without stickers and without paying, and maybe any boat patrons to be able to park west of the booth would be the first place we would ask them to park. To reserve the 200 spaces down below for beach patrons and people with stickers.
All right, so lease number 6, 570 feet, that's just going to disappear?
We never had we don't have a lease on that currently.
I realize that,
Yeah.
I don't know why
but I
it
don't
went
know
into.
that we advertised it.
It is disappearing off of this map, yes, but it's my understanding, and I looked at the old ones today, that this area has never been leased.
Because I don't think that we ever actually advertise the availability of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just wondering if that is something that we would like to do for increased revenue. Although it's a smaller sized spot. But if we're going to advertise, and I don't know that we are, but if we're going to advertise the availability of lease number 1, then
If that comes up.
we might want to consider 1 and 6. Advertising costs wouldn't increase.
Yeah. As you can see, lease 6 does not have a dock. It's just that seawall.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no bumpers. There's not an official cleat thing there. And you couldn't put a boat there, Ron? I mean,
The other lease there, my brother Engelman who died, he didn't really use the dock. He just had a mooring pole out there. He walked over the dock to get to his boat.
okay.
So he didn't really use the dock.
We're getting some expert testimony from the audience. But thank you. Thank you for that. And you know what, Roseanne, I can certainly look into it. And as this develops and as I start talking to the boat owners, as we get with town council, as we start getting these leases signed, we can have conversations with the men and ladies down there and see what's right for the town and what's right for our lessees. Listen, we want to support this. This is I think it's great that we support this small little fishing fleet. And I had a sit down with the Black Hawk, Gary. Is it Gary? Yeah. And just a great guy, and he brings a lot of business to our town. He brings people to our town.
I would, given the sort of tradition of allowing parking there for their patrons, I would hate to do something that would appear to be discouraging them.
I'll work with them, I
Yeah.
promise.
Okay.
They bring a lot of people
They
into
do.
town.
Absolutely.
And I think that they should, based on past practice, I think they should be allowed reserved spaces. Not have to come and compete and hope that they can find a parking space. It's going to turn away people.
Yeah,
And
that's
we
the
don't-
trouble.
we don't want
is,
that.
Is that I think there's only about 4 or 5 reserved spaces down there, and that I have no problem with anyway. Maybe we'll leave those signs up, and I'll have that discussion with the owner. But leaving 20 available for them at all times, and don't forget there's 4 boats,
Mhm.
and one of those could turn into a charter party boat that every day they need 10 spaces, and all of a sudden we have a boardwalk and beach in
But
the
that
park.
hasn't been past practice. This
Right.
ha-
This
Right.
has been.
Right. Absolutely. I'll be working with these folks, and we do understand, and I know the value in having those folks, and I hear that from you as well.
Is there is that a mooring on the new map here that's to the right of the old lease 6? Did you say that he has a mooring? Mr. Engelman,
Oh, with that circle on
That
the
circle,
map?
That looks quite a ways off from the other.
I don't know what that is. You have a boat, Mark, right?
It's a mooring pole.
Yeah, it's a pole in the water.
is that a registered mooring for? Do we know? Okay.
I wouldn't think so. That's where the bridge traffic comes flying through,
Okay.
right? This
No,
is-
that's not used for anything. Though.
Yeah, you wouldn't have
No.
moorings there.
That's where he ties his boat up.
So I have a question. If the, on the leases that are going to be renewed, is there any prohibition about converting the use from commercial fishing to a party boat? Are they free to do that?
As they're being drafted right now, you're only allowed to have commercial fishing or charter boats.
Which is different than a party boat.
Yeah, I shouldn't have used the word party boat. But it could be another, I mean, there's a boat there, I think what do we call it, the Triton?
Yes.
Is it's not a party boat. They do fish off of it, but it's also not a deep sea fishing, as I understand it. I don't know the gentleman's business, but yeah, it has to be primarily fishing. It's not just booze cruises.
Well, I guess my concern is the demand for the parking, if the use should be converted from a charter boat, which can only hold a few people, to a party boat. If we ended up with 2 party boats there, or 3 party boats,
Yes.
then we're gonna have a lot more demand on those parking spaces. So I was just curious as to the restrictions in the particular leases, but they would be restricted to commercial or
Charter fishing.
charter fishing.
Yes, I can tell you that the Black Hawk lease that just expired this year, and all of the leases that expired this year, it says, failure to be actively engaged in the commercial fishing or charter boat business is a cause for default under the lease terms.
Okay, so that addresses it. Thank you.
All right, going back to lease number 1. Is it this board's responsibility to take action on that?
It's certainly the first selectman's responsibility. So we'll be picking up any payments in arrears and requiring, I would think, in the lease, because of we could put a provision in there that they should pay up front for years going forward. That's what any other company would do, is not wait for the payment at the end of the year, but demand it at the front of the year with the signing of the lease. I think we require at least 50% down anyway with the payment of the lease, correct?
Excuse me, yes. And it's, once the payments are not made in a timely manner, it's an automatic default under the terms of the lease.
Okay. We'll have to stay with that then and make sure these things are coming in, and I will stay on that now that I know this is another part of the duty.
Back payment with interest accrued?
Generally, no.
No, it's not provided for in these leases.
Then I think that should be added in.
It's a good comment.
Yeah, it's certainly your property tax payments if you don't
Yeah,
make
it's
them.
1.5%
Yeah.
generally
Interest
per month.
accrued.
It's a good payment. Good.
So getting back to lease number 1, so he is in default. He will be informed that if he does not pay.
Right.
Is the boat there now?
I don't know the answer to that.
We're
Mr.
thinking yes.
Yes.
I'll get on this.
Okay.
We just wanted to get the leases together before we
Sure.
started calling them in, but this is, front burner stuff. And now that we have some language, we get the leases written out, and I wanted to review them with you because I'm getting some great feedback and good ideas to put in there.
And I've written down the comments.
Thank you. So this will be next week. Any other questions for Tracy while we have her here?
Do we have I see the shared storage lease 1 and 2 and storage lease number 3. Is that defined? Better defined? Like could storage go into the old lease 6? I mean, do we have controls over that?
It's where they were parking their cars. Basically, Bill Shear's idea was, they all have a little storage. They have their, the lobster nets or whatever, and just to give them all identified spaces where they could store stuff.
That's just dealt with Park and Rec. They deal with that, but it's not gonna.
It
works now, so I'm
Yeah,
just making sure that it doesn't. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Apparently there were some problems with the storage of the lobster traps, that they were stacking them too high. But the leases, even the ones that are expiring, call for no higher than 4 levels.
Oh, we have that in there.
Yes.
Okay.
So am I correct, they're not separate leases for the storage lease? It's storage for lease number 3, would that be?
I think the lease includes their storage area.
Okay,
Yes.
so that'd be storage for
Correct.
lease number 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it, thank you.
Any other questions? I'll just make a point that the lease also contains an insurance requirement, and listing the town as additional insured. We get notification if the insurance lapses, etc. That's very important with all the liability down at those docks. Those docks are also, they're docks. They're on the water. They're exposed to weather, etc. And the tenant is responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of said docks as
Yes.
well. And that is strongly worded and
Yes.
clearly worded in our contract.
And in accordance with your instructions, we've been running these leases past KERMA to make sure that the insurance policy premiums and language are in accordance with their standards.
That's good. Thanks, Tracy.
Okay,
I do just
follow
want to go back
Yeah.
Sure.
to lease number 6. So, has that been absorbed by lease 2, or is that just no man's land?
That is no man's
It's
land.
always been no man's land. There's never been a boat there. Because it's not a proper dock.
Back to the responsibility of the owner. That includes their customers. So they're responsible for any damages and stuff like that, or dumping off the area.
Yes.
That's the responsibility of the leaseholder, right?
Correct.
That goes back, and that's
Sure.
okay.
It doesn't specifically mention dumping, but it says that they're responsible for their use of the dock and any other people who may be using it pursuant to their authority.
Okay.
General liability, anything that happens with their boat, including the dumping of stupid things out overboard and polluting something, and
Right.
it comes back, it would be their responsibility.
It's their responsibility.
Clearly, that would be a
And
a
therefore they-
violation of the lease, and
Yes.
their insurance would have to pay for any damage there is.
Okay.
Thank you, Tracy.
I think there's one more
One more
question.
question.
One more.
So we're abandoning lease number 3 on this drawing. Is there any restriction from rejuvenating the 6th lease with respect to the other leaseholders? Could they prohibit, is there any language that would allow them to prohibit the town from developing that 6th lease again?
No, there is no language in there. The town would be free to develop that lease
If we so-
if it
we decided
chooses.
to. Thank you, Tracy.
Good question. All set? Now I'll say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. There's no unfinished business. There's no communications. It's great to see Bill Blanchett today. Ex officio reports. Mrs. Hardy.
Okay. I'm just going to report on the Commission on Aging this evening. Although I did attend Natural Resources, I'll wrap their meeting into another report. Transportation requests have increased greatly. They're very busy, and oftentimes the drivers cannot get back before 4 o'clock, particularly the main driver. And so this will be reflected in their budget request for some additional time for overtime for the driver. As there certainly isn't any option for another vehicle, this would be, I think, the most efficient way to handle it, with the request for some additional overtime to be provided. We're back to no meal site director again. There has been a slight increase in the meal site attendance, and apparently TVCCA is re-examining the whole issue of meal site directors. We apparently aren't the only town that's experiencing some problems with that. We approved in the budget, no, this was when we hired the replacement for the receptionist, co-worker, she's really getting involved. Started a new program with an intergenerational book club with the 3rd graders at Haynes. There's a new blog that started where they can sell ads and generate some revenue. There was also a decision to provide a 10% discount on all meals for veterans who come. A new program, WebTrack Online, so that attendees for programs can register online and not have to come directly to the site. There was a slight accident with one of the buses. The very tightly, limited space with the Black Point overpass, which we've all dealt with at one time or another.
I've hit it several times.
I'm surprised that there haven't been fatalities there, truly. The senior bus was already entered into the underpass area when a school bus approached and the senior center bus driver veered to the right to avoid hitting the bus, but then hit the retaining wall on the side of the underpass. Fortunately, neither vehicle had passengers at that time. So that vehicle, I believe, is still at Dolly's for repairs. If it's back, it's just recently come back. In the scheme of things, minor accident, really no one was hurt, but, and I'm sure our insurance company will handle the damage claims,
That's how it happens.
but it's, that's just really a bad area, and experienced drivers who go that route should be aware, and larger vehicles should wait until the other vehicle has exited before entering. Just an observation. So that's it for my report this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Sardi.
Okay,
Excuse me?
yes. I attended the planning meeting last week. There was an extensive presentation from Art Carlson on the importance of the aquifers. And then the Planning Commission, upon the presentation of documentation and evidence from Victor Benny, voted to send to the Board of Selectmen their recommendation that we accept as a town road Peach Lane in the Orchards complex. All the work required to equip that as a road suitable for us to accept as a town road had been completed. That was planning.
Seemed like a short meeting.
No. However, I thought in the interest of brevity I would summarize.
Thank you.
I attended the Board of Education meeting last night. They met on Tuesday, of course, because of Martin Luther King Day. The two main things that happened at the actual meeting, there was discussion re the Salem East Lyme Cooperative Agreement. They've reached agreement on a new contract agreement to go through 2019. And then there was discussion with regard to the superintendent's proposed budget, 4.56% increase. Approximately 3% of that is due to the wage increase awarded to the teachers, which is 3.37%, and health insurance costs. They will be meeting many times to decide where that is going to end up. I gathered from the superintendent there were a number of initiatives he did not include in the budget because it would have brought the price up. There was a very large parent turnout at the meeting. It is apparent there is a great deal of misinformation about as to what is happening with this project. A lack of knowledge about the process, a belief that the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance should have been intimately involved from the beginning in setting a price for this, a desire to bring this to referendum tomorrow, belief that there is never going to be a referendum. Anyway, obviously it's a Board of Ed meeting, but I tried to stress to the Board of Education that it is important that whatever happens going forward, we make it plain to the residents of the town, both parents and non-parents, that we are looking for the best possible solution for our elementary schools at a price the town can afford. But be prepared to take a lot of questions, comments. I think we were all in receipt of all those emails over the past couple of weeks.